What if I was to say you don't have to live in an English speaking country in order to become fluent in it, or any other language? Because it's the kind of misconception that I have never subscribed to throughout my entire life. And today I would like to prove you that you don't have to. Because I basically did it without ever stepping foot outside of my home country.
I did it! I finally defeated Sam!
I have to start with a little bit of my background. So it's a funny story. I hope you would find it useful. So basically, I remember the first time when I encountered with an English language, right? So it was back in fifth grade, yeah, when I was like 12 or 13 years old, basically. So it was the time when I moved from the fourth, fifth. When you move, there's usually a couple of new subjects being added to your curriculum. And English, in that case, was added to my syllabus. And I'm like, okay. So it's so funny. I remember like I opened up, it was the biggest book, by the way, back in that time. Like it's just this much. And I'm like, okay, I opened up the first couple of pages because just to try to make some sense of it. And, absolutely, like I realized that this is not for me. Because I didn't understand the saying there, let alone understanding, I couldn't even read those words correctly.
Can someone pronounce this word?
And I shut it down right away and just didn't want to look. So basically, that's my first impression of English. But we had this amazing teacher from that particular subject, like English, And she was such a nice, kind, warm-hearted woman that we couldn't do nothing but to learn or do something about that. Because what she used to do was to give us multiple tasks, quizzes, posters, stick notes, vocabulary lists, and so on, multiple tasks at once. And what's more interesting, she would give us points for each completed task. It means if you basically complete 10 tasks, you're going to get 10 fives. What I mean fives is, in my home country, the scores at school range from like 2 to 5. So basically, if you're scoring 5, it's the highest score, so it means you're doing quite a good job there.
Good job.
Super obsessed about those fives. And every week, whenever we had English lesson, I would completely do everything. I remember still to this day how I used to sit down at home and spend like multiple hours just drawing pictures. And I also had this much of a big vocabulary lists book because back then we had no phone, At least I had none. And I remember having just used opening up this certain pages and looking for certain words and writing them down. And it was so much fun. And at the end of the week, I used to count how many files I got and so on to boast and compete with my friends. So, yeah. But after a couple of months, I realized something, that my habits started to turn into a genuine interest. I really started to get obsessed with this language. Because I remember our teacher used to play every lesson some videos, cartoons, which were in English, and I really wanted to understand them. And I hated myself for not being able to.
You understand English?
I had to do something about it. And I started to join an English group outside of school. That was my first step into English world. First, it started all quite well, like any other story, right? But after a certain time, like after a couple of months maybe, the life hit me and I'm like, okay, now I realize, because we started complex tenses there and structures and so on. In my native language, we don't have this much of tenses. We have like 3, and English has like 10 plus tenses.
But I haven't been fully able to understand.
So basically, I gave up. And at the same time, we had some financial issues too. So that all combined led me to just leave the group. And interestingly, then in 6th grade, I started attending yet another group with another teacher. And it also was quite cool until the test day came. And I still remember that time, that feeling I had, that embarrassment. Because I was doing everything right, like vocabulary, reading, and so on. But on the test day, I couldn't understand almost like 50% of this. And you know what I did? I left.
They all made it in, but I failed the exam.
So I took another couple of months off, then maybe a year off. Finally, at the end of the 8th grade, I decided to start learning English. So, you know, by now you must have realized I didn't have these goals and this much of ambitions related to English that I'm gonna be someday teaching English or gonna be an expert on that.
Of InsureCare's inner workings. They're experts! Experts, Bob!
That's how I ended up like in an education center in my town. It was quite close to my house actually. It was cool. And when I moved there, everything has completely changed now because the teachers were quite amazing out there and the people overall were quite friendly and just quite kind, you know.
Okay, get out of my office now.
He used to even give us nicknames in English and call us nicknames, not our native names. Native names. Can you say native names? I mean, real names, right? First names. So it was quite an adventure. And, you know, interesting thing is that, so basically when I am saying like I started at the end of the 8th grade, starting yet another group, right? So if I started in the 5th grade, so basically in 4 year time, you know what progress I made? Zero. My level was to beginner level. And I'm like, what? Where did all that 4 years go, man? I was upset with that. And anyways, I started attending, I started doing this and that. And in 1.5 year time, I got to score a B1 from CFR exam.
I did it!
And yeah, so in 1.5 year, yeah, it's too long, by the way, to reach from A2 to B1. But I never believed myself to be super talented individual or something, as many people think, you know, which irritates me a lot because they're like, yeah, you have a talent, you know this language, you are this language, but
You are so smart and gifted.
man, come on. It took me this much time, like, and I'm still feeling myself like a crap individual when it comes to this language particularly. And all those things. So after that, finally, I decided to do some things that I never thought I would. After having scored B1, I started teaching English to kids. That was one of the biggest decisions of my life. And after having started, I used to charge them, by the way, and it was like not much about charges, but about experience. Not only experience, okay, I'm honest. Like a little bit of money I needed too. Why not? But I used to charge them like maybe fifths of what I used to pay. So it was basically not much money. And at first, like I had one student, then 5, 10, 30, even 40 students.
Look at my pupils. It's me, Dipper. It's me. I tried to erase your mind.
Imagine that. Can you? Because the people, the kids from my town, even from other towns who were coming, and their parents used to drive them here. And I'm like, okay, it's going quite well, I think. And I decided to further down on my studies. So I decided to apply for IELTS and started attending IELTS groups. And after having done a couple of months, the groups, I mean, I started to doubt it a bit because I realized I can pretty much do it on my own. Because I was spending, for me, at least, it was too much money. And I had my own fair share of struggles here and there, you know. And what I was actually doing was receiving money from my students and basically taking all that money and giving it back to my teacher. So I was investing it without realizing. Now I realize that was one of the greatest investments of my life. That I really basically take money and just give it them. And it just continued for 5 or so months. And then I decided to go and do self-study. Because when you reach B1 level, you can pretty much do everything on your own now. You can just basically do IELTS, TOEFL, wherever at home. You have YouTube, you have GPT, right? And so on. Back then we had no GPT, by the way, but wherever we had YouTube. So that's how I basically got to go and score band 7 from IELTS as well.
7-7.
7-7.
At home. And now I would like to talk about my key strategies. I mean, imagine, like, I gave you a briefest possible story that I could because it's too long, honestly. From like 5th grader to scoring C1 and by the end of the school days. It was quite a journey. And, I sat down and thought about like what helped me to go from that level to the current level which I am in right now. And, the first thing I found to be super useful, which helped me to change my life completely, was immersing myself into English content. I remember I applied this rule back when I was preparing for my CFR exam, so in 8th grade, right? I remember like, okay, I need to learn this now, so I have to switch everything. So YouTube in English, movies English, animes. I used to watch a ton of animes, and I'm like, okay, I need to find some kind of website which is not paid, and just it's such a crazy story with that anime thing because so many websites are like they have these stupid ads. I used to always kind of just sleep through those crazy obstacles, whatever. Whatever. And yeah, I basically switched to English in every single aspect of my life as well as I could, and made it a part of my life. English, everything in English. Even though I struggled to understand all of it most of the time, but I didn't really care because I knew that eventually I'm going to end up understanding all of it. So yeah, immerse yourself. Just do it. Just do it. There's no other way. Yeah, you're going to suffer. Yes, you might have your favorite bloggers or video gamers, whoever. Just find the ones who speak English. You're gonna get used to it. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You're gonna forget eventually. That's how it happened to me. That's how it helped to other people, to my friends whom I advised it, or they have heard from somewhere. That's how it works. And the second best thing was staying consistent. What I mean is, without consistency, it's literally impossible to achieve anything in life. And I assume I learned this from doing sports. From my early childhood, I used to do so many types of sports, and especially like from boxing, because I remember the times when I got used to like get beaten up, and after a couple of years, I started to beating those guys up, and I kind of had that idea. Yes, you're gonna suck for now, because I developed that mindset. Just okay, you're good, you're bad now, you're gonna get better and better, then eventually you're going to beat them all. And I applied that rule, which was in boxing, to English, and that's how it happened. Some of my group mates didn't score even in CFR B1 level, and I got to go and just do it. You see?
You see, he's just a man.
Next best thing was starting to do like self-studies. Because doing self-studies, now we're living in this era where you can basically do anything on your own, literally. Even if you want to learn something from zero, you can just Google it or YouTube it or GPT that. And because it gives you that sense of responsibility, because I told my friends that I'm gonna do it on my own, I'm gonna score this IELTS, I'm gonna get this done, and eventually I did it, of course. But I always had that in my mind that I told them that I'm gonna score this now, I have to do this. And that's eventually what happened. So the next thing was, and the final one, and I believe it to be the most important part, is teaching to learn. What I mean is, when I decided to start teaching, it was the best decision of my life. Trust me. I doubted myself. I thought like, okay, it's not going to work. I am just a kid now, you know. Remember, I was 10th grade back then. It's not going to work. I won't be able to do this and so on and so on. And
So on and so on and so on.
finally decided to just, okay, whatever, I will do my very best to achieve it. And it worked. It actually worked. And interestingly, you know, what I realized when I started teaching is that I don't know anything about English, turns out. Yeah, maybe I might have done quite well when it came to doing those in tests and so on. But when it comes to actual explanation of the certain rules, how the clauses are placed, how the subject, verb, adjective, and so on, to be's are placed, I didn't know. I kind of knew how to use, but I didn't know what they mean and so on. And teaching actually taught me that. I believe teaching taught me more than any other book combined in my entire life. Because when I had to teach other kids, I had to explain them clearly, clear grammar, clear vocabulary. So before teaching, I used to sit down and read the rules, come up with examples, arguments, and how they are done in my native language and in English and so on, and combine them and teach them. I realized that I didn't know anything, like from even low beginner books. There were some certain exceptions and I explained them. And that's how I eventually ended up not making any kind of grammar mistakes at all. And okay, sometimes I do make them, but it happens to everyone. But overall, it dramatically boosted my overall confidence in my grammar and all other aspects of English as well. That's why now I encourage you to not be afraid of sharing your knowledge with someone else. Don't be scared. Even if you are like basically A2 level, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's no someone who is just at a lower level than you. Go and find them, your peers, your classmates, your maybe younger siblings, whatever. Just ask them to come and join it, and you start teaching them what you learned yesterday from your, I don't know, from whatever group. But basically, sit down and just teach them. Yeah, they might struggle and so on, but you're going to learn twice as much and twice as fast as others. Because whenever you explain, it's going to get stuck in your mind in a way that no other way could mimic this. So try it. Yeah, don't be afraid. Always. If you just keep on practicing that, in 6 months' time, you're going to definitely notice the difference in your speech, in your grammar, and your vocabulary, and so on. Just do it.
No!
Just do it!
Don't be scared. Who cares, right? It's you. It's both beneficial for you and for the learner. You're making progress, both of you. So right now, if you're sitting in your, I don't know, hometown, in a small town where there's like 1,000 people or whatever, and they don't talk, they don't want to learn English and so on. Even you can just have your imaginative persona whom you're teaching English, and that's how you're going to end up making huge progress. Just do it. It doesn't matter. You're going to learn. That's how you actually learn anything in life. So yeah, if you have any other questions, you can share them. I would gladly answer all of them if I could. But I would. Why not? Yeah. It's not like I'm getting tons of comments. Actually, in fact, I got only one comment, I think. Okay, thank you.